Hi, David.
Hey Rosabel, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I think I've got my podcast voice on.
Oh, do you? I didn't even notice. I was too distracted because I'm in a weird place.
Emotionally or geographically?
I'm inside the offices at Te Papa, but
Oh.
um, everyone's being really quiet, so I'm trying to speak quietly too.
For our international listeners that may not know what Te Papa is, what is it?
It is our national museum, and I'm down here launching a different podcast to Flightless Bird tonight. So I'm just working at one of the
What?
desks. I know. It's you could say it's a betrayal, but I'm not actually featured in the podcast. It's different.
Oh, that's okay then. That's okay. We won't sue just yet.
Just yet.
Now, today's question, I'll keep it brief because you've got work to do, but we are talking about being a child star with Mara Wilson. She's on the show.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if you watched her in anything when you were a kid, like I think it was Mrs Doubtfire, Miracle on 34th Street, and of course, Matilda.
Ah, I've seen all of those films. I love her.
Yeah, she's pretty great. Do you have like any do you remember where you watched them or what you were doing or any sort of emotions around them?
I was just such a big Robin Williams fan when I was a kid. I
Mm, mm.
couldn't tell you when I first watched Mrs. Doubtfire, but I watched it so many times. I loved that movie. Probably loved it more than the other two films, which I'm have a different connection to.
Well, they didn't have Robin Williams in them, so that would line up.
It's true. Someone did accuse me of being quite trunchbull like the other day, so maybe I do have a connection to it.
What was the context of that?
Like, I'd rather not get into it.
Look, do you think you were being Miss Trunchbull-esque, or do you think that was a mischaracterization at the time?
Oh, look, I think that's a private conversation that you and I can have, and you can make a decision.
I'm David Farrier, a New Zealander accidentally marooned in America, and I want to figure out what makes this country tick. Now, last week was our Nickelodeon episode where Rob took me through a 50-something page slideshow demonstrating his love and affection for all things Nickelodeon. It was a celebratory episode about childhood, about a time when children had the attention span to get through an entire episode of Rugrats and iCarly. But of course, as we briefly alluded to, there is also a darker side to childhood TV, or at least a side that isn't as sparkly and whimsical as the shows themselves. So for this episode, we thought we'd talk to someone who grew up as a child star, someone who knows this world better than we do. Mara Wilson is an actor, podcaster, and author who rose to fame pretty early when she was a kid, starring in films, like I said to Rosabel, Mrs Doubtfire, Miracle on 34th Street, and of course, the titular character, Matilda, in Matilda. She's had a lot of time to reflect on those years and has a lot of complex and nuanced thoughts on that time as well. So prepare for a dose of nostalgia mixed in with a lot of, is it a good idea for kids to become famous so early? And how should I feel about that? Because this is the Child Stars episode.
Flightless, flightless, flightless bird touchdown in America. I'm a flightless bird touchdown in America.
Now, while that theme song was playing and we were listening to Rosabel, Rob, you were rearranging a number of things around.
I was just adjusting some volume.
You adjust some volumes, you move some
Moved a
props
bust,
around.
Yeah.
And you were upset that I placed my water on the table without a coaster. And it's one thing I've noticed about you. It's placing something without a coaster really riles you up. And I wanted to just briefly talk about that.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as to say really upset.
You get a certain I can see you stiffen up a little bit in your posture.
Respect wood. Do you not respect wood?
What's the you get the ring on a table, don't you?
Yeah, it ruins a table.
Does it ruin?
This is a business.
Yeah.
We use this on other shows.
Yeah, and you don't
I do this thing where if you look at your table, there's 3 coasters.
Yes.
Sitting around, and somehow you still manage to not get it on a coaster.
I do like having a lot of different vessels of liquid around as well.
Sure, that's why you have 3.
That's why I have 3. But yeah, I find them I find it much better to just put it directly on the wood. Something about that.
Something about ruining the wood that you're putting it on.
Ruining your beautiful set.
Do you use coasters at home?
I actually recently
only use marble countertops and
only
tables.
only marble in my house. I live in like sort of a porn star style, only black marble for me. No, I actually bought some coasters for the first time, probably 6 months ago.
Good for you.
And I'm trying to use them.
Yeah.
But I got to say, I've lived in this place for 3 years now. There's a few wooden surfaces in there. I'm not noticing like a lot of rings. I think the rings from not putting things on coasters is maybe a myth.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely gotten rings on things from people.
Have you?
Yeah, there's rings on this. You want me to lift this up and show you?
Who did that? Who was?
I don't know.
Probably Natalie. It was probably Natalie.
No,
I'd say.
look at me.
Well, no, I believe you.
Rings.
Yeah, there are rings.
Oh,
you know, there are rings. And that's from someone not using a coaster. I've learned my lesson.
I think, though, what it probably is at home.
I put this coffee on a coaster.
I mean, that doesn't need a coaster because it's not cold or wet and it's not going to.
Also, this coffee cup can go on.
If it's like
wood.
Room temperature now, then yeah. But what it probably is you're not drinking like super cold stuff at home.
No, it's true.
That's going to have condensation.
I see.
And because that's what happens is the condensation drips and then you got a pool.
Yeah, underneath.
Around.
And that's where the problem comes in. And because I've removed this water from your fridge, it's very cold.
I like cold water. I like
you have your
water.
fridge at a very cold temp in here. Yeah. So there is condensation. I'm noticing that now.
Yes. So that's why instead of putting it on a wood table, put on a nice. I got like 40 coasters in here.
There's so many. How's your week been? We've had a lot of. There's been a big 2 days of rain in Los Angeles.
Yep.
My roof leaked a little bit, which is quite annoying. You sent me a photo of a tree that had fallen across the road.
Yeah, that was the like main road.
A
by
massive
our
tree.
house.
Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, and I think it had just fallen because people were like starting to wander out. And it was on a car.
Yeah.
It smashed a car. That's the second car I've seen smashed this year.
Terrifying.
From rains here.
It is that thing where Los Angeles trees don't seem to be able to cope with wind. Like they're not deeply rooted. They just seem to sort of blow over at a whim. The trees in New Zealand, deeply rooted, very strong, can put up with a lot of wind. In LA,
it's weird, yeah, because that's down. Also in Chicago is kind of like that when there's really bad windy rainstorms.
Yeah.
A lot of times they'll
trees
like
come down.
Giant branches. I've never seen in Chicago like both of the trees in LA that fell over were like from the roof.
Yeah, it's comical. Like LA, it's not comical, it's dangerous, but it's like you look at it and you're like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
It's like this is weird to me.
Yeah. Whereas like Chicago, the bad storms would come and just whole branches would come off and smash cars.
I see.
So less
dramatic, but still intense.
Yeah.
My big news of the week before we get on to child stars, I went and had a follow-up with my gum person because I got these gum grafts.
To see if the gum would take?
Yes, the gum took. So very excited. She said, these are great gums. She said, all your gums now, 10 out of 10, great gums. But she said, I think you should go down the hall and see the orthodontist because I think your teeth have got some problems in the way they're growing. Because when you get over the age of 40, your teeth can start to crowd each other out. Now, I've noticed I've got a gap. I've talked about this a bit before. I've got a gap in my teeth that's formed. And that's because my lower teeth are pushing my two front teeth out a little bit. So I've got this gap. So anyway, cut a long story short, went to the orthodontist.
You're getting braces.
I'm getting braces. No, see, so I had braces when I was 15. Horrific. I imagine a lot of people listening to this would have had braces at some
I had
point.
Braces.
Yeah, they're ratcheting it up.
Around that age, too, is like very rough to have braces.
I had pimples, glasses, braces, all at the same time, all delivered. Threesome. Horrible.
They wanted me to get braces again when I was like 17 or 18, and I was just like, absolutely
Just
not.
to like correct things a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is where we get to now, because essentially teeth were great when I was a kid, but apparently like you go through like more growth in your 20s and your 30s. Point being, I think I'm going to get Invisalign because the way my teeth are connecting, fast forward 20, 30 years, it's going to be a problem. And so I think Invisalign's happening. And the reason I'm bringing this up, I noticed that it's about, I think it was like $6,000.
Oh, so you're trying to get them as a sponsor.
Full on. Yeah, I'm thinking, I Googled it. Where's Invisalign? They're in America. They're an American company.
They sponsor a lot of podcasts.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay, Invisalign.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening, I don't particularly want to pay $6,000 for this thing. It's not a vanity project. It's purely my teeth are like whacking in weird directions.
Yeah.
Do you want to know like a side plot to this?
Sure.
I have an unsymmetrical face, so one side of my face is longer than the other, so I'm a bit wonky.
Mm-hmm. Is that why you like cock your head a lot?
I'm always turning. I see cameras. I'm always sort of angling a bit away because if you see me straight on, you'll be horrified, wonky. So what's happening is my teeth are connecting on one side more than the other because it's wonky.
Just like the gravity of your body.
My gravity of my body just like sucking my jaw down. No, but the horrific thing is, she said, if you were going to do this and get a perfect like bite, we'd need to go to a surgeon, break your jaw, reset it, and then do the orthodontic treatment. I said, absolute fucking no, you're not breaking my jaw. Like, I do not like. Come on, I will invest a bit in my mouth so that I'm not like grinding my teeth. You're not breaking my fucking jaw.
That's an insane
I was shocked.
Thing to suggest, for a doctor to suggest.
Yes. No, and I was legitimately shocked. I Googled them. They're legit. They're the real deal. It's just something I hadn't even thought of, but because my bite is different on one side to the other, I was just shocked. It's not often I've been sitting in like a medical establishment and being shocked by what someone suggested to me.
I didn't realize that there's growth and changing happening after. Like, I thought once your adult teeth come in, like, that's it.
I thought the same thing. Apparently men, and I think this probably explains a few things. You know how like old men have like massive ears and like massive noses?
Yeah.
They keep growing.
Okay.
And women apparently like hits puberty. Basically you stop then if you're a woman. Men, we keep growing in like really weird, like unseemly ways. And so my face has like changed more on like one side than the other, which is why I've got this uneven bite.
Well, this is a good segue.
Yeah, I'm curious where this is going.
You said after your 40s it starts happening. How old are you?
Okay, I know I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, where are we going?
Yeah, no, there was a big problem, and I'm a bit annoyed that no one fact checked this, including my own brain. So I looked when Nickelodeon was debuted.
You said
1979
is what you said, yeah.
And so my brain went 1979. That was 3 years
away from when you were born.
Away from when I was born.
You went the wrong direction.
I went the wrong direction.
Okay.
So I stated very confidently that I was 3.
Which means you would have been born in 1976.
76.
Right.
Making me pushing 50.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I was nice. A lot of people wrote in saying, my God, Dave, you're so young. You're so like youthful. This is crazy. You're not pushing 50. And correct, I'm not. I'm 43. But a pretty dumb thing to sort of forget when you were born.
Yeah, but I see what you
did.
You
see what I did?
I see what you did.
I went backwards instead of forwards.
Yeah. It's confusing now that we're in 2026. So like we used to have, you didn't have to go over.
I know. I completely
2000.
agree. Yeah, I know.
So now it's
Simpler
like
days.
26 on top of 12 for me or 18 for you.
Yeah, it fucks you up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was, I stated it so confidently in the episode. I always assume in like all these episodes, I'll be getting quite a few things wrong. But not my own age and not in the first like 5 seconds of the show.
I will say Calvin asked us how old we were the other day, and both Natalie and I got it wrong.
That's really good.
Well, he tried saying we were a year younger than we were, and we were like, no, that's not right. We're this age. And
so who got it right, him or you? Or were you both wrong?
He had it right.
How old are you?
I'm 30.
30.
7 or 8?
30.
37
I'm 30.
or 8.
Oh, wow. Let's get this right. It's hard.
Yeah, well, because, the 2025 was my last birthday.
Okay.
So that means I'm 37. I'm turning 38 this year.
That's good news.
I thought I was 38.
Until now, again.
It also feels weird. I didn't think I was turning 39 this year. But Calvin had it right.
He's a smart kid.
Yeah.
I love you arguing with your kid about how old you are. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. Speaking of age, child stars.
Child stars.
How's that for a segue?
Well, before we get into that, just a little bit of housekeeping.
Yes. What have we got?
We do have live podcasts coming up that you can still get tickets for.
29th of March, Salt Lake City.
At the Depot.
Great venue.
April 2nd, in one of my favorite cities, Austin, Texas, at Emo's, which I've seen lots of music shows there, and I'm excited to put on a show there.
I love these venues.
And then April 4th in Dallas at the Texas Theater.
Very appropriate name, seeing as we are in Texas.
Those are on sale now. We'll put links in the description of this episode, wherever you're listening.
I am starting to get excited by these because I'm starting to hear back from guests that I'm trying to book and find. And it's the most fun part because you're just hearing from all these different people. And we're going to have some good shows lined up.
And it's a nice place where we can get a little weirder than we normally would.
Yeah, what is that?
Well, it's because we can't normally fill a full topic with something super bizarre like that.
Yeah.
Or we have less access to it because it's so specific to that city.
Yeah, it's like the crazy gets turned up somewhat.
Yes.
It's more of like a smorgasbord of America as opposed to like a big deep dish. You know?
Which, with that in mind, if you are a taxidermist in Salt Lake City, Austin, or Dallas, reach out to us. We'd love to put some birds on stage, some dead birds on stage.
Yeah, we do. I got to say, I'm pretty proud of how our stages end up looking. We dress them beautifully. And if you work for Invisalign and you're looking to sponsor one of our live shows and sort my bite out, don't need you to break my jaw, but get in touch, flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com.
If they were willing to break your jaw for free as part of the sponsorship,
so
would
they'll
you do
cover
it?
the whole
procedure.
No, I never want my jaw broken, man.
That sounds
I've
terrible.
never had a more horrific thing put to me by like a medical professional. Usually it's like, we'll put stitches in.
Yeah.
Like, to break, don't break me. I'm here to be put together. My body's already a mess. Don't break it more.
It reminds me of those like surgeries that people have to get taller where they like break their legs and extend them.
To extend. Yeah, some horrific. I still can't believe it. Now, today we're going to talk to Mara Wilson. We recorded that conversation a few days ago. Delightful convo. But I thought it was important because we had such a whimsical, wonderful Nickelodeon chat.
Yeah.
Just to kind of acknowledge and sort of look at some of the crazier sides to being a child, sort of being involved in children's TV. Because it is just objectively quite a weird thing. Like being a kid's quite weird, and then suddenly you're a star and on camera and working with a bunch of adults.
Yeah.
Intrinsically quite a weird thing to do. Like usually when you're a kid, you're not working.
Right.
As well.
Yeah.
So like,
it's a child labor thing going
acting is like one of the weird things where you're a kid, you're getting paid to do quite a hard, intense job.
Yeah.
And that unto itself is quite weird.
Which, when you were a kid, like going back to the Nickelodeon episode, you're not thinking about that for any of these kids. And
absolutely not. They're having the best time.
And you're like, there's no part of you as a kid, which is good, that is thinking like, oh, this person could be treated horribly or...
No, the opposite is like these kids have like they're having the best time. I wish I could have a time that good.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of those kids had a terrible time.
Yes. Well, and the funny thing about the cartoons is I think a lot of the kids' voices on cartoons are grown adults just doing crazy voices.
I remember I was lucky enough to go to a table read of The Simpsons one time. And so you had all the actors. There was a couple of them were zooming in, but most of them were in the room.
How old were you?
Oh, 10. 10? No, this was like last year.
Oh, okay.
And I went there because a friend of mine works on the show, and just seeing, I mean, I know we all know this, but like seeing adults voice like Bart and Lisa and like...
Well, and they're like different genders from the characters too, a lot of times.
Mind-blowing. Yeah. It's the weirdest thing. So yeah, that is quite a weird aspect to it. Quiet on set is like the definitive thing I feel that got people kind of talking about how bad things could be. And that dealt specifically with, what was the guy's name? Dan Schneider?
Yeah.
Dan Schneider.
Which, I mean, he probably worked on a handful of the shows we talked about last week.
So many of them.
Yes.
So many of them. And the stories about him kind of dribbled out in 2018, kind of Me Too time. Deadline did an article about some gender discrimination. So it kind of started sort of lightly, nothing like too insane, but still awful. And then 2021, New York Times reported that Nickelodeon had severed ties with him. So obviously something else is going on in there.
Yeah.
And that was more, I think, about him verbally abusing colleagues and just kind of being like a shithead, bullshit idiot. And then in 2022, more reports came out, and that was more about him requesting massages on set. I understand not from kids, from like adults, but getting into like not great territory at all.
Yeah, bad power dynamics.
And then since then, there's been a lot of accusations about him behaving inappropriately with younger stars on set, because he was like the creator, he was the guy that everyone knew made the shows, and he'd be wandering around on all these sets. And there's enough accusations. He's denied a lot of them, but there's so many of them, you kind of have to go, oh yeah, something's going on here. This is not good. And just crazy to think that like the head, like Nickelodeon big honcho, is the one who is also just like a gross dude.
Yeah, I mean, like the like taking advantage in the power dynamic of that, especially introducing kids, is the like worst imaginable thing. I have a hard time watching those types of things. I've intentionally not watched that documentary.
Yeah,
having kids myself. Those are hard watches for me.
Because it's funny. It's like I feel that way. I still haven't watched the Michael Jackson doc because it feels too icky. It's like once it gets into that territory, it's like, I believe this person's a horrific person. Don't need to watch a blow by blow of the whole thing.
Yes, that's how I feel. Like I understand, and that's all I need to hear and know about it.
And I often think about this with just the amount of true crime kind of horror show stuff that's served up. It is kind of good sometimes to know your limits of like what you should watch and consume, and have some sense of like boundaries in that. And I don't have kids. I think I can completely understand how that would make things even more unpalatable, because it's like the worst thing you can think about is someone being a shithead in any capacity, or children, or any kids. It's like,
well, even like watching adolescents is like that too. Like you're watching a kid that reminds you of your kid, or like when your kid is the same age, and it's hard to just not like think about like, oh, if I was this parent and this was happening,
what am I doing?
And
in the case of adolescence, your immediate reaction is like, I'm going to defend my kid. Like my kid wouldn't do anything like this. But then the reason that show was so brilliant is like, okay, well, what if he did? And how are you dealing with that? I just got goosebumps thinking about adolescence. Like that show is still one of the most, probably a perfect show, or as close to perfect as you can get. Performances, the way it was shot, And if you haven't seen Adolescence, it's going to devastate you, but please watch it.
Incredible child actor, and like who knows what like having to do that is gonna, like, hopefully there's enough of a support system around this kid, which I will say too, I think that's important, and Mara will touch on this a little bit. Like, sets are all different, and studios are all different, and films are all different. Like, what happened on one, I don't think you can blanket say is every child's experience, and we shouldn't be assuming that.
No, and I think that's why Mara's story is good, because like she had like a pretty positive time on the sets. It was more just the fact of what being a child star like did to her psyche, and how other people were because of that. So she's got a much more like nuanced view. I think the craziest thing about the Nickelodeon situation is that we got so much feedback, which I'll read later, to last week's episode, because everyone they grew up with these iconic, amazing shows. It's just so bizarre that the guy behind so many of those shows was a sleazebag.
Yeah, well, and these characters that meant so much to so many people's childhoods and like impacted lives so much, like knowing then what they were going through while this was being made, puts a dark cloud over things.
I can see why Nickelodeon wanted to sever ties. And we touched on this a little bit in the Slime episode, which is going back a while now, but you know, there's the specific, and there's a shit ton of this online. He's been written about at length, but he was obviously awful to certain actors and inappropriate to people allegedly underage, as well as adults. But then you just look at, like, you widen it out, and it's really weird thinking about stuff like slime. You know, like just these kids getting like slimed all the time. If you start to look at it through like another lens, it gets creepier and weirder. And one aspect can be like, oh, kids are getting like gunged or slimed. It's hilarious. But then suddenly when you look at the person that's like doing this and inventing it and you look at those games, it does take on like a super weird dynamic.
Yeah.
Which we talked about in the slime episode, but I keep thinking about that as well. Like there's so much weirdness when you introduce.
Taints the image for sure.
Completely.
But yeah, that is also why we wanted to talk to a child actor, because us talking about it is not helpful. We weren't child actors. We don't know what that was like.
I was actually one of the worst actors at my school. I tried to be in a Shakespeare production and I was so shy. Mouth went like painfully dry.
Yeah.
It was a Midsummer Night's Dream. I can't even remember what my character was, but I was very minimal. Just panic. Just like awful being on stage.
Yeah.
Couldn't think of anything worse.
And hey, we're going on stage.
Yeah.
March 29th.
Yeah.
April 2nd, April 4th.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
David will recite some of Midsummer's Dream.
I'll have flashbacks.
Yeah.
I'll freeze up. Oh my God.
But yeah, let's talk to Mara.
Yeah, this is Mara. She was in an HBO doc called Showbiz Kids, which you should watch. But this is her on our couch a couple of days ago.
My name is Mara Wilson, and I am a writer, actor, mostly voiceover these days. Mostly these days I do audiobook narration, which I absolutely love. Best job I've ever had. And I write articles, I write plays, I write all kinds of different things. Writer, performer, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, and I was a child actor who grew up in the LA area.
It was sort of surreal meeting you because I grew up in New Zealand knowing Matilda very, very well. Mrs Doubtfire as well. And I thought that's why it would be good to have you in here today, because we've recently done an episode on Nickelodeon and got to thinking about the world of children in TV. And especially in Los Angeles, it's such a thing. And I was like, oh my God, I know someone that could speak to this so clearly.
Well, and we talk about it in a fun way, and we know that it's not always
I mean, I kind of have an issue with the way that a lot of these things are being talked about right now, because, you know, things like child abuse and child exploitations are problems with institutions. And I think a lot of people look at Hollywood and they think it is uniquely terrible to children. It is not always a great place, but I can say from personal experience, I always felt safe on film sets. There were some questionable things like, hey, Mara, could you work overtime? You know, and you're asking, you know, a 10-year-old, can she work overtime? But it wasn't the abusive place that so many people think it was. And
you didn't come out of a nightmare situation.
I mean, I kind of did, but like it wasn't the sets. It wasn't the film industry. It was, I say, you know, Hollywood pushes you into the pool, but it's the public that holds you under.
Maybe we should sort of start by how you got into this space as well, because I can't imagine being your age as a kid and being in front of a camera or even thinking about that. How did that even begin for you?
I grew up in Burbank, California. My dad worked at NBC for a while, and my parents didn't get me into it. It's funny because I've had the Nepo baby thing thrown at me. And I'm like, my dad was a maintenance engineer at a TV station.
Yeah, but they hear NBC and they're like, oh, we know how you got in.
Exactly. I'm like, nobody gives a shit about engineers. And my dad will tell you that himself. Whenever they change owners, people will say to my dad, like, are you worried about this? And he goes, do the cockroaches care who owns the building?
Yeah.
And people always forget, they think it's like these power players all the time, but they forget the thousands of people who work on film sets. So I grew up with children of, you know, editors and people who did practical effects and, you know, children of first ADs and things like that. Burbank, where I lived, was more of a lower middle class, you know, even working class area at the time. It is not anymore. And there were people who were actors, but they were very low level actors. They were journeyman actors. They weren't making a lot of money. So that was what it was. And I know that my grandfather worked in PR at one point, and he, I think, was like, hey, they need families for this toothpaste commercial. My parents were like, okay, we have 5 children and it would be nice to put some money away for college. So they appeared in it and they wanted real families. And I've watched the video and they did 2 real families. And one of these are these California blonde, hippie white Aryan family, like playing guitar together and singing. And then there's my family, which opens with my mom yelling at my brother for hitting one of my brothers. And you see them get hit and you see them yelling on the camera. And I'm just like, oh, great, we're that family. And I didn't know this till I was an adult. I was in it as a baby. So really, that was my first commercial.
That's young.
But one of my brothers after that was like, he was very charming, very talkative. And he was like, hey, I'd like to do more of this. So he did more, but he got really burned out of it. He burned out on it really quickly. He was like, I don't like this anymore. I want to do something else. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because for a lot of us, I think, who grew up there, it was kind of just like an after school activity.
It was so normal. It was almost boring.
Yeah. Coming from outside of LA.
It seems
weird
like,
to understand that,
incredible.
but like I have 2 kids that are growing up in LA, and like our 3-year-old's been on the podcast and has been on Armchair and like has
which is super weird for an outsider.
But for him,
normal,
is totally normal. And there's people at his school and parents that are on TV that he sees or billboards all the time. I still forget
that here that is in the culture so deeply.
Yeah, but it's not as like insane as it sounds not being here.
I have friends whose parents are directors who like, they made a movie and, the daughter was like in the background. And, but yeah, I saw what my brother was doing and I was like, I want to do that. And I think I was kind of born a bit of a people pleaser. And you cannot be a child actor without being a people pleaser. That's one of the problems with child acting is that it encourages a lot of bad traits. A lot of people will say all the time like, oh, well, you must have been abused in the industry, blah, 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 which is a really messed up assumption to make about somebody. Like, oh, I bet you were like molested. And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, that should come from me, not you.
Yeah, exactly. And no, I wasn't. And any sexual harassment I did experience was because I was in the public eye and I was accessible. So I had creepy old men, writing me letters and like posting pictures about me on the internet and doing these really awful things. And it was because I was in the public eye. And so I think a lot of people focus on these things and they never focus on the public's role in it. They don't focus on what the public does to children, and I do think people are kind of having a reckoning because like 20 years ago, you remember the countdowns to when the Olsen twins and Emma Watson and everybody were legal.
Which is mad when you think about that. Yeah.
But it was a normal thing.
You see some of those people on mainstream talk shows back then as well and the way the hosts treat them and the kind of questions they have.
I got asked all the time if I had a boyfriend when I was a kid. And I was like, no, I'm 7. Why would I have a boyfriend?
Yeah. Stay tuned for more Flightless Bird. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Support for Flightless Bird comes from Shopify. When we started this podcast, Flightless Bird, many years ago now, it seemed like we had to figure it all out from scratch. The scripts are set up when we were going to film this thing. We didn't even film it back then. It was crazy. What our logo was going to be. My point is the whole thing was overwhelming and every day seemed to introduce a new decision that needed an answer.
And when you're starting off something new, it seems like the to-do list keeps growing. And that list can easily begin to overrun your life. So finding the right tool that not only helps you out, but simplifies everything can be a game changer. For us, that tool was Shopify.
Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US, from household names to brands just getting started.
Household names like Momofuku or Allbirds.
Allbirds, we love Allbirds.
I love Momofuku.
Best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and beyond. If you want to sell things online, Shopify is really going to help you.
And what I think is really cool about Shopify is they've got their design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates that help you build beautiful online stores that match your brand style.
So start your business today with the industry's best business partner, Shopify, and start hearing... Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/bird.
Go to shopify.com/bird. That's shopify.com/bird.
Support for Flightless Bird comes from Bombas. If you're anything like me, everyone wants to know what your 2026 resolutions are. I'm getting sick of it, quite honestly. But I had one resolution, and that was to get comfy. And that's where Bombas comes in. They're bringing serious comfort to all the everyday go-tos you might want in your life.
Yeah, I take my softball very seriously.
Oh, and believe me, I do.
Yeah, there's a trophy next to us. And Bombas has all new sport socks that are engineered with sport-specific comfort for running, golf, hiking, skiing, snowboarding, and all sport. So I've been wearing those when I've been playing, and I love them.
This might be TMI, but I am currently wearing Bombas underwear. They're comfy in all the right ways. All of their underwear and tees, buttery smooth, breathable, feel so, so good. I'm sleeping in them as well. Really good. I usually sleep naked. No longer. I'm sleeping in Bombas.
And the other great thing, for every item you purchase, an essential clothing item is donated to someone facing housing insecurity. One purchased, one donated, with over 150 million donations and counting.
So head over to bombas.com/bird and use code BIRD for 20% off your first purchase.
That's BOMBAS.com/bird. Code BIRD at checkout.
So when did you notice the transition when people did start knowing who you were? Like, what role really solidified that, where you noticed those things?
I mean, it was a little bit with Doubtfire, but it wasn't bad. And, you know, I was actually really close friends with Matt and Lisa, who played my brother and sister in that movie. And so sometimes Lisa and I would go out shopping or something, and people would be like, "You're that girl from that movie, and so are you."
Yeah, so you had this really positive experience internally, and what got you was more the fact that they didn't prepare you, or no one really prepared you for what it was like in public and what that would be like and how to deal with fame, essentially.
That was the hard part. I think that there's so much that children are exposed to. People have said to me, "Can you be, you know, a healthy child actor?" And, you know, or child stars shouldn't exist. And I say, I think you can be a somewhat healthy child actor, but I don't think you can be a healthy child star. If it were up to me, what I would do is I would do things like, first of all, I think directors should be interviewing the families of people there, because there are, unfortunately, and I knew this a lot of people whose parents are maybe addicts, or parents are maybe, you know, living vicariously, parents who are abusive. They should be doing that. They should not force children to do press junkets at all. Like, I remember the Stranger Things kids were like always being interviewed by everybody. And I was like, give them a break. They are children. They are teenagers.
For someone that doesn't understand the junket circuit, like, what is it about that is particularly like harrowing, do you think?
Like, you know how intense a job interview is? Imagine having 20 of them in one day while you're jet lagged and you're not quite sure what city you're in.
Yeah, so essentially you're sat in a chair while in the other chair about 30 journalists are brought through and one up to the other, basically. Sit down, hello, questions.
Yes, they do.
All day.
It's going to be the same questions all day long that you're going to be very tired of. And then there's going to be like one question that they spring on you that's completely inappropriate or bizarre.
Yeah, just to get that little bit of audio.
Exactly. And so you're in a strange dark room basically and it feels like a job interview. And so people will say something sometime. They'll be like, why did they give such canned answers? Or they'll say, why is this actor acting like they're out of their mind? And I'm like,
they kind of are.
Because they are.
Yeah, especially when they're 7.
Exactly. And I don't think it's fair to do that to children. And I think that there's some measures that I've seen, like I know Bluey, the show Bluey has child actors on it, but they do not put those children's name in the credits. And I know, like in the movie After Sun, the director, there's a kissing scene, but she angled the camera so the actors didn't actually have to kiss. And I think that could be very respectful, because there were a lot of movies that I was getting where I would have to kiss someone. And I remember my dad being like, you know, how do you feel about this?
That's where you're saying, you know, a director potentially should interview a whole family, because you had a family that had your back the whole time.
Yeah.
There's kids there that their family doesn't give a shit. They're just
they
go
don't.
and do this
Do
role.
whatever he says.
Yeah. I mean, my parents were very worried about me being sexualized as a child. And it's probably a good thing that I was a really awkward teenager. Like I was just all braces and, you know, and zits. And I was not a cute. There were some child actors who were like beautiful teenagers. I was not. I was a really awkward one. Although I wish I could say like it meant that I wasn't sexualized, but I wasn't. I still was, you know, it wasn't something that helped me. My parents tried to protect me from it, but I was still finding links, you know, that said like, we have nude pictures of Mara Wilson. And obviously they didn't. It just meant I was photoshopped into child sexual abuse materials. And I mean, can you imagine finding that at 12?
So what did that sort of do to you back then, and what sort of help did you have around you to cope with that? Because I don't know how you're meant to cope with something like that, something that's out of your control.
I always had people who knew me and loved me. I had studio teachers that were like mentors to me. I had, you know, family members that knew and loved me. And, you know, my family was going through a lot in those years too, because my mother died. So we were all kind of struggling. And I was probably going to be an anxious child dealing with, a severe trauma no matter what. But, and I had a creative outlet. I had creative outlets that were not just acting. So I always loved writing and I had that. I ran away from Hollywood to do community theater and like improv and show choir.
Was that a protective mechanism, do you think,
Yes.
getting out of acting? That was
Yes.
a decision you made.
My parents were like, you should take some time off now and go to school.
What age did that happen?
Probably around middle school, high school. My dad kept saying, go to college, then maybe come back, maybe you can direct, maybe you can produce, maybe you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I was it's funny, I feel like the same way that people rebel against their families, I was kind of rebelling against film. I was like, fuck film, I'm a theater person. I'm going to live in New York
Pure.
forever. Yeah, it's pure.
Yeah.
And so every now and then people were like, oh, would you be in a movie again? And I'm like, yeah, if it was fun, or if it, was something I really believed in, or if it were with friends. Like, I know a lot of people who like to make creative stuff with their friends, but don't
It's the
necessarily. Yeah, it is. My friends who work on Welcome to Night Vale say, make things you like with people you love and you'll never go wrong.
Completely. And they've
Yeah.
got your back the whole time as well.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Do you think in the States or just in the world in general where we're at now, do you think people are more respectful or less in the way that they treat you when you're out in the wild?
People don't always recognize me. They used to. It's usually a certain like demographic. Like I remember being on the train when I was in New York, and if like a group of girls of a certain age got onto the train and I was like not feeling well and didn't want to be photographed, I would get up and move to another car.
You could see it coming. Yeah.
I could see it coming. Yeah, like a lot of retail situations, a lot of times people will talk to me, face to face. We have face-to-face interactions. I'll get people kind of looking at me. And then I get to play the game of, is this person looking at me because they know me as a person? Is this person looking at me because they recognize me? Is this person checking me out? And it's usually the second one. But I get a lot of, you look so familiar.
Yes, like, do I tell them or do I just move on?
Yeah, and I usually just move on unless they ask me. I didn't used to appreciate it, but now it really does. Now I'm like, no, this is a nice thing. They appreciated my work. I think it's also because when you're a child, you did one thing. Like kids will do something 1 year and it's kind of like, oh, they took Taekwondo lessons 1 year. And then like 2 years later, people are like, so how's Taekwondo? And they're like, what are you even talking about? And that's kind of what it was like for me. Like people would come up to me, Matilda, and I would be like, I'm in middle school. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And funnily enough, in Burbank, there was like a hierarchy because there were so many child actors, but I was not one of the cool child actors at school. Because I was in kids' movies. So they were like, you're in baby movies.
Oh, God.
All the cool kids are Gap models.
They're an ET.
Yeah, like all the cool kids are on like, I don't know, like Buffy or weirdly Seventh Heaven was cool, even though that is the least cool show that has ever existed.
Oh my God.
That show is terrible.
That show.
Yeah.
That was big in New Zealand when I was a kid.
Did not age well either.
No.
Aged very deep, very, very
For
badly.
many reasons, it's terrible. And there was a lot of jealousy. So there was a lot of like assuming, I went to school with Michelle Trachtenberg and she was really badly bullied because people were like, how fucking dare you be on Buffy? How fucking dare you be on our favorite show?
Who was she in Buffy? She was
like, the sister that gets kind of retconned in, and that's kind of the point, is that she doesn't, And people were incredibly cruel to her. People would look at me and they'd be like, you're a nerd. Why are you in movies?
Looking at what friends and colleagues and just people in the world are doing in the world of acting, like, do you think things have improved in the world of child actors? Is there more care in place, or is it still chaotic? When you look at, like, as you said, the Stranger Things kids doing endless junkets.
Yes and no. Yes, because people now understand that it is a job. And I think that people just kind of wrote us off as spoiled brats years ago. They were like, oh, these kids are getting everything they ever wanted. They're privileged little shits. Yeah, you're American royalty, basically. And I mean, we do get a lot of people doing things for us. I did have somebody heating up sunscreen in the microwaves before they put it on my face.
So you are
we were privileged. We were privileged. Yes, like we were privileged. And it's funny because I met somebody who was a child actor's a father recently at a convention, and he was telling me about his kid. He's like, I've noticed that a lot of child actors tend to be very forgetful because there's always somebody telling them what to do, so they never get to work that muscle.
Yeah.
Which, if you're as like ADHD as I am already, like I'm an object at rest that stays at rest unless somebody's like, hey, Mara, you need to get going. Hey, Mara, you need to do your homework. Hey, Mara, we're ready for you. So that wasn't good for me. But that's a different kind of spoiled than getting everything you want. And
of course.
One thing I'm seeing is people are scapegoating Hollywood and saying, well, all the abusers are in Hollywood, it's evil. And yes, there are abusers in Hollywood. I know people have been sexually harassed, abused by people in power there. But I think that that's an institutional thing. I think if you look at, mega churches, if you look at any kind of big religious institution, if you look at schools, if you look at, scouting, if you look at all these kinds of things.
Yeah, there's going to be pockets where kids are absolutely abused
Exactly.
and not treated well.
Because predators are drawn to these places where they can have power. And in Hollywood, it's I have power over this person's dream, over this person's life. So they take over there. And but like my agent was like a family friend. She was like family to us. We loved her.
Well, it's such a broad thing, like just Hollywood, where like it's different if you're on a Daniels movie or you're the kid in Adolescence or
a giant production versus
or
a tiny
Toddlers and
indie something.
Tiaras.
Well, my parents always wanted me to do movies and not TV. I knew like teen stars who couldn't go outside without like crowds of girls grabbing their shirts. And a lot of them are like, I don't want anything to do with this anymore.
Yeah.
So my parents said, if you're in movies, people will know you for playing different parts. They won't know you for being the same person over and over again and be calling you by that character's name forever. Well, I mean, people do still call me Matilda, but honestly, Matilda's a cool character, so I don't really mind anymore.
The best character. It's the best character.
Do you find it unique to America, like having gone to other places and how they treat child actors?
Well, I know that the UK press is pretty brutal. Although I will say that UK fans are shyer. I remember like doing things in Liverpool, I think, and like people coming up and like barely speaking.
It's the same in New Zealand. We're too shy.
It's a very Commonwealth thing. Honestly, it's the same reason why I've completely failed to flirt with cute people in the UK. Like, I've tried and it just, no, I can't. I'm too direct for them. They just blush and walk away.
No, freak out.
Yeah, they freak out.
What's
no,
happening?
it's happened to me.
Someone's
it's happened
talking to me.
And I'm just like, oh, I have no game here. I can't just be like, you're cute. And they'll be like, oh God, who are you? What are you?
I'm American.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. And I'm Jewish American. I'm even more direct. And I used to live in New York. So yeah, so there's
Triple threat.
I'm a triple threat. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the celebrity culture there and the paparazzi there is really bad. I haven't experienced but I think that they've got a lot of other people. I do think that paparazzi has kind of turned their attention away from us. And I think a lot of people find this paparazzi, they find it kind of disgusting and they've accepted that now.
There's been a pushback to that culture for sure.
But I have noticed the fans I met in Latin America were very sincere. And it probably also has to do with the fact that it came out, at least in Colombia, it came out at a time that was a very hard time in their history. So it was a movie that a lot of the kids there kind of used to escape.
It was like escapism. Yeah,
Yeah.
that means so
Comfort
much.
that they found in it.
But I do think that one thing that I wish we could get, though, is standardized practices across other countries when it comes to child actors. Like, I have a friend who was my studio teacher in Canada, because we filmed everything in Toronto and Vancouver back in the day. And she says that there, if they have to do really emotional scenes, they have to talk to a therapist. Like, there's an on-set therapist.
Huh. Because your brain isn't even fully formed yet as a kid to like deal with any of that stuff. Like your frontal lobe's miles away from being done.
That said, though, I think people worry a lot about kids doing really dramatic scenes and things. But I think the kids are actually better at doing that than adults because kids still pretend. And acting's not pretending really, but it is, it's something a little bit more meditative than that. But I could shake off doing like really dramatic scenes. I could cry and then I could just go to lunch. As an adult, though, that's where you see like actors falling in love on film sets and then realizing, oh shit, we probably shouldn't have done this. It was just the role,
That's really interesting.
Like having affairs on the film set and then
kids
being
are
like,
better at pretending.
my friend Lisa went through this as well, where we had like boy characters in movies that were supposed to be in love with us who actually hated us and were, 2 years older than us. And we're like, you're an annoying little kid, get away from me. So that's, kids pretend and I don't think I was a great actor as a child, but I think that I was a better actor in some ways as a child because it was easier for me to get vulnerable. Whereas now it's harder. It's harder for adults to get vulnerable.
It's a bit of a hack question, but what's been like one of the strangest kind of interactions you've had with a fan or someone that knows your work? They're not necessarily just something that stood out to you.
Most fans are very nice. I've been told I have kind of a resting, concerned face. Like I can look really like intense and really deep in thought.
I think you look thoughtful.
Yeah, I look thoughtful. And
fair.
I've had people come up to me and be like, oh my God, are you okay? You look so sad. Do you want a hug? And I'm like, or they'll say like, it must be so hard for you to do these conventions. And I'm like, well,
because they assume you're looking like slightly sad or pensive as opposed to just, you're fine.
Or somebody said to me at one, they were like, well, it looks like people haven't been coming to your booth and like, you look like you just need a hug. And I was like, if I wanted a hug, I would get it from somebody
Someone I know.
I know. And it's so funny to see that parasocial thing of like, well, I'm here, but I'm not like the other ones. It reminds me of like men going to strip clubs
Mhm.
and being like, I'm so sorry for the way that they treat you here. You know?
So you're one of them.
Yeah,
You're also
exactly.
there.
You're here.
You're one of them, you know? And so there was that. Although the creepiest interaction I had was a guy came over and he was on the phone. He's like, I'm calling a friend. My friend wants a photo. And he looks at my photos and he goes, how old were you in this photo? And I was like, oh, maybe, 7 or 8. And he's like, okay, was this your first movie? And I'm like, yeah, he's asking questions. And people just ask those questions sometimes. And then he like says something on the phone to his friend and is like, okay, which one were you the youngest in?
Oh boy.
And
time out.
yeah, and I immediately like look over to the guys there and I say the code, but they don't, because we usually have a code for that means like, please get rid of this person. And that very rarely happens.
Oof.
But I say the code and the guy's like, and then but instead of him telling him to go away, I just basically looked directly at the guy and I said, you need to go. I said, what you're asking is very creepy. And he goes, well, I'm just trying to do a favor for a friend.
Oh, it does not excuse you.
And I think I probably said something like, get some better friends, or I was just like, it doesn't matter.
It wasn't his friend on the phone. He was just there talking to nobody.
I was just like, yeah, this
Ugh.
is extremely creepy. And I told him he needed to leave.
I had a friend that did the convention circuit, and she had had like some different nude roles in films, and someone had screen grabbed all of those shots from all the different productions, made it into a calendar that they'd then printed and wanted her to sign it at her signing table. And it's like, what brain are you in where like that becomes something to do?
Yeah, I mean, I narrate audiobooks and I've done romance and I've done some spicy romance. But sometimes I look at like the guys I know who do spicy romance, and nobody bothers me about doing these books with sex scenes in them. I'll see some men who do it and I'm just like, oh, you have like a really intense following, and I would be freaked
that's
the
a
fuck
whole
out.
scene.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
The women who do spicy audiobooks, we get ignored, but that's probably a good thing.
Oh, that's so funny. It's
Yeah.
this weird reversal.
Well, it's like,
Yeah.
It's like heated rivalry right now, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I do love heated rivalry.
I know. Yeah.
But I like romance, so But I did notice like those guys did like an erotic short story together, I think, on one of these apps, and I was like, I hope that they're okay. I mean, what I do have to say is I'm really glad those guys like have each other, because I know like for me, even just like having like my friends from Matilda was good for me.
Which is wild. I mean, that says something about the production that you're in and the team you had around you, and probably why you do feel safe. Like you're still all friends still.
Yeah.
That's pretty unique, I imagine.
Yeah. So like Kiami, who played Lavender, and Jackie, who played Amanda Thripp, and I will like do conventions together, or we'll just hang out.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What a trip. You wouldn't expect that at the time. Like you're in that. You're not
Right.
like, I'm going to be friends
We're
with
going to be
these
friends
people
30 years later, right?
30 years on. That's insane.
I look at people who are in stuff like Heated Rivalry, which is way more intense than being in something like Matilda, and I'm like, well, I hope that
Will
they're
they be
actually
friends
friends.
in
I hope
30
that they're like, I
years?
hope that team like
They seem
stays together
friends.
as group. That the actors seem like they're friends, and it seems like the director producer is like taking care of them as well. But this is what I mean when I say it's better and it's worse. It's better because people realize now what people are going through, but also people have so much access. And I have this thing that I call the uncanny valley of relatability, which is basically people love like when an actor is like a little bit relatable and is like a little bit human, then at some point they go too far. And either you find out that they don't share your exact same politics, or they say something really stupid, or, it's like Anne Hathaway or Lin-Manuel Miranda or Jennifer Lawrence, where people just get overexposed and they're tired of them. And
suddenly
suddenly they're really mean to them. And it goes like this like Julius Caesar crowd scene where everybody loves you and then everybody hates you. And there's this drop off point.
So just little thought exercise. Say like, Rob's kids want to get into acting. What advice would you give to like friends' kids who are thinking about this? Like to the kid or to the parents? Like what are the things to kind of look out for? Are you like, yeah, go and do it, enjoy yourself? Or are you like, do it, but keep this in mind?
There's a lot that I would ask them to keep in mind. I would say that probably I think the safest thing to do is to do like 1 or 2 projects, make money that you can put aside for college or like travel or whatever when you're older, and have it be like a fun experience, like make scrapbooks of it, which is what me and my family did because we thought it was just going to be fun. So, I still have like a, book of photos and Polaroids of when I was in Doubtfire.
But not like this must be your life.
No,
just like, this is
no.
just
He
a
did a
thing.
career at this age.
Yeah, well, I also say to people, this is kind of brutal, I say, a lot of people want their kids to be stars, but do you want your kid to be a has-been? Because they're going to be accused of being a has-been, and they're going to be accused of being a has-been when they're like 13.
Yeah, which is insane.
Yeah. I mean, I've had people say things to me like, oh, how does it feel to know you peaked? And also, they shouldn't do it if they want to get famous, because being famous is something that's really hard. I mean, it's easier to do than it used to, but you probably will never be famous enough, or you will be, and then you'll hate it.
Yeah, but if that's your reason for doing it, you're not going to be happy. That's not going to lead to a happy life.
Terrible idea. I say to people, try to stick to theater and stick to performing in that way. Stick to having a connection with an audience, because with theater, like, I know a lot of people who will say things like, I would never do a nude scene in a movie, but I would in theater. Because, there's a contract sort of with an audience. It's an ephemeral thing. Versus like anybody being able to print out the images and make a calendar out of it.
Like a cut on YouTube or whatever, or a calendar.
Exactly, yeah. So try to imagine how happy you were when you were first performing, and it was usually for your family or like at church or something like that. And then think, if you could only ever have that audience, would you still be happy? And if it's yes, then you're doing it for the love of the game. And
cool.
Also, don't ever push your kids. If it gets to be too hard for your kids, get them out of it immediately. Be constantly checking in with them.
What if they're making lots of millions of dollars?
I mean, that's the thing, though. Brooke Shields talked about this in her memoir. Her mother was an alcoholic, and not only were they making a lot of money and like living better, but also she felt like film sets were so regimented that they were the place she felt safest. And her mom was kind of at her best. And I saw a lot of that as well. I saw a lot of addict parents, and film sets are very, very regimented places. So I think that, and it can be a really great experience, but I know a lot of people for whom it was sort of just like a one-time thing. They acted in one movie and then they were like, nope, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to do other things. And I wish we could do that. I wish more people would do that. And like I said, I do wish it was standardized across countries, because I do think child acting in Canada is different than acting in the US, which is different than acting in the UK, which is different than acting in New Zealand, which is different than, it's very different. And I wish we had more of a standardized thing. I mean, we do have a former child actor as the SAG president now, so maybe we'll see more standardization of these things. Yeah, Sean Astin.
No way. Who seems lovely.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. He was in Goonies. He was a child actor, and he came from a family of actors.
And he seems to have turned out great. Like, he seems like the loveliest human on the planet.
I've met him before, and he's a very nice guy. Yeah, he is.
Cool. No, I think it's a really interesting take, though, and good to hear that it's obviously there's badness everywhere with kids where there's an organized group.
It is corrupt.
But it's not just Hollywood.
It's an institution. It's a business. It's capitalist above all else. And it's not immoral. It's amoral.
Well, and the audience that's consuming it.
They never look at themselves, and that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm saying over and over again, you know what? You guys were the ones who gave me the most problems. And they don't realize that.
If we're going to direct our audience to something that you have made or done recently, where would you like people to go?
I wrote an article for The Guardian recently about The Guardian US about child sexual abuse materials and AI, where I've talked a lot about how so many children now may be forced to live my nightmare of, being photoshopped or being, AI being made into, child sexual abuse materials, and what I think we can do to advocate against that, and, what we can do legally, what we can do politically, what we can do socially to fight against that. That's something that is very important to me.
Thank you, Mara.
You're very welcome.
Mara's great. Love her. Freaking awesome.
Calvin recently discovered Matilda.
No way.
And it was fun.
It still hits?
Still hits.
Yeah, she's so good in that.
Yeah, that was such a fun kids movie.
Yeah, and Mrs. Trunchbull.
Yeah.
Until Rosabel brought that up, I forgot about that whole character. But it's perfect because every kid, it's so relatable.
This is going to sound bad because I don't think...
No, roll with it.
My family...
Whenever you think this is going to sound bad, I like to just say it. It's what we all men should do.
No, I related to her. I felt like my family treated me like her family did when I was a kid, which is a very dramatic take on it because they definitely did not.
So much. We the youngest?
No, I was second youngest, I was like the black sheep of the four children.
Yeah.
I was like the weird kid that was into music and art that they thought I was like on drugs because I wasn't not going to church.
Were you more like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone or Matilda and Matilda? Who did you identify with more?
I mean, I think family-wise was very much more Home Alone.
Okay.
and identified with that.
Yeah.
But it like was still in that same realm. Like, but her parents and Matilda were terrible.
Yes.
Which looking back, I had great parents.
Yeah. No, just to be clear. Did you have a Miss Trunchbull type character at school or in your childhood?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Okay, you go first.
I had a teacher that like she grabbed me by the ear or the neck.
That's so
at
dramatic.
One point,
just to sort of like tell you off, sort of shake you around a bit, or like to lead you somewhere.
I had like did something she didn't like with one of my friends. I don't know if she thought we were getting in like a fight or something, and she like grabbed me like very hard. I think she grabbed me really hard in the arm. It was the vice principal at my elementary school.
The teacher who made I was terrified of her. It didn't help that I'd been homeschooled till I was 11. And so I went into school for the first time when I was 11, suddenly had other kids in my class and was getting kind of told off for the first time. Because mummy never told me off when I was being homeschooled. You know,
mummy.
She didn't though. But didn't call her mummy.
Now you do, but you did not then.
But there was one teacher, our art teacher, Mrs. Denny. She was mean, and I wasn't great at art, and I certainly didn't get motivated to keep trying at art in her class.
From someone being mean to you.
From someone being mean to me. But I just always remember, and she didn't just say this to me, but it stuck with me. And I fucking love this because I'll always say it to people and they apologize, especially after like a really like horrific argument. She'd say, if you were sorry, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. And it's whenever someone apologizes to me for something, or I hear someone apologizing to someone, I'll always interject with that most annoying statement, nonsensical bullshit you could ever say.
I had a similar teacher, junior high teacher. He would say, don't be sorry, be correct.
Christ.
Yeah.
Do you think these teachers, when they say that, they think they've got a great line and they just love roasting kids with this dumb bullshit?
It's stuck.
We're still
stuck with us.
about
the words of wisdom.
Have you ever been tempted to say that to your kids?
No, but it's still like in my brain.
It sits, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just while I was thinking about this topic of child stars, Haim and Corey Feldman came to mind. The two Coreys. I kind of missed out on this at the time, but I know Corey from, or was it Haim from Stand By Me? Who was in Stand By Me? It was Corey. Amazing coming of age film, Stephen King. Corey ended up going on and having like a fairly horrific kind of music career, like he's still performing.
Yep.
Haim died from pneumonia in like 2010. He had like massive addiction problems. But I always think of those two brothers when I think of like famous too early and things just kind of going off the rails later. And Drew Barrymore, I forgot, was in rehab when she was sort of 13, 14 because she got too famous too soon, I guess from E.T. was the thing that like made her huge, like the biggest movie of the 80s.
I think that generation was one ahead of me.
Right. Were you calling me old? I'm nearing 50, did you know?
But I do think it was a lot harder.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people had a hard time escaping that.
And there was
like,
no
it's
care.
more rare to have those stories where you've got the like Fred Savage from Wonder Years and the Boy Meets World cast. Like I think they've all kind of gotten through it. And I think what happened in the 80s and prior to that was maybe a little more of a cautionary tale. And
yes,
as you went into the 90s and 2000s, they gave them a little more care.
Yeah, because there was no duty of care, right? And like there was no, and I guess you're around that a lot of probably parents as well just like wanted to extract the cash from their kids as well. And it was just all a bit feral.
I can't imagine if like we're progressing to being a more positive thing, like how much more fucked up it was in like the 40s and 50s and 60s child completely. Stars.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of child stars, I went and I saw Cat Power last night at the Orpheum.
Good show?
Great show.
Yeah, cool. I've never
yeah,
seen them. I want to.
her voice is incredible. And sitting in front of me was Haley Joel Osment
I see dead people.
from The Sixth Sense. And he I feel like is a success story of a
Totally.
child star.
Yeah, he pops up in a bunch of stuff, and he's hilarious and iconic and a whole other thing.
Yeah. It's cool when you see people from that generation and they're like just doing cool things because they can now.
Completely. I don't know why this just popped into my head, but didn't Saved by the Bell was like a very big thing in my childhood, and
Screech.
He went into pornography.
Yes.
And I believe he's passed away, right?
Yes. Dustin Diamond.
What happened to him? I'm just curious, because he had a professional wrestling career? Did not know he got into wrestling. There was a sex tape at some point. Bar altercation. He was convicted of 2 misdemeanors, carrying concealed weapon and disorderly conduct in 2015. 4 months jail. And then he got small cell carcinoma of the lungs. Had to have chemo. Oh, awful. Died from cancer February 1st, 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I think what really stood out from what Mara was talking about, which seems obvious but wasn't the first thing I thought about with child stars, was that like press and the public really have a lot to do with why it can go sideways.
Yeah,
like
what
it's
happens...
one thing you make it off a set unscathed and protected and with good people around you, which hopefully most of the time that is the case. But then just like your brains are developing at that age, and just all that attention is just gotta fuck with you so much.
And I guess there's that added element we're living through now where fame can happen in a very small setting at home if you're on TikTok and you become huge, or YouTube.
Yeah.
And then dealing with the fame that comes from that is this whole other thing. It's like the levels of fame when your brain isn't fully formed. I mean, it's hard enough as an adult. Like, I find it hard if like people say shit about me. I find it like still affects me. I can't imagine being like a kid and having to deal with that. And when you're actually big and prominent, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like that whole world is.
Yeah. Like I think she mentioned too, like it's just really important that you have a support system and people around you that can help protect you. If not everyone has that.
Totally.
And not everyone's as lucky to have that.
And I think also kids are bad sometimes at communicating. Like a kid seems happy and fine. They sometimes don't know how to communicate how like awful shit is as well.
Yeah.
So I think having parents and caregivers around that actually can take an active look and like actually check that the kids are okay. Okay. Are you ready for some feedback? Because there's a fuck ton.
Yes, feedback. I do want to say I did forget Real Monsters.
You son of a bitch. No, the second we stopped recording.
Yeah,
you were like, Real Monsters.
Yep.
Damn it.
Which I loved that show.
Same.
The cartoon from that was one of the first times in art class that I realized you could draw cartoons and just like replicate them like that. That was one of the first like drawings I did that made me fall in love with art.
That little stumpy guy that held his eyeballs in his hands.
Yeah, I drew that guy.
Oh.
It was and as like very fond memory. I think maybe I just missed that one.
You bastard.
Yeah. Hey Dude was another one I missed that I did love a lot. That was like same era as Salute Your Shorts.
A lot of people wrote in about that.
Hey Dude was great.
People love that show.
It was like a ranch. And then just Snick as a whole, which was Saturday night Nickelodeon.
Snick?
Okay. Was like 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Nickelodeon for like older kids.
Oh.
And
spookier or like more like
that's
weird?
Where Are You Afraid of the Dark was on that.
Okay.
All that. Keenan and Kel, Ren and Stimpy.
Edgier.
It was
older
the
kids.
TGIF for Nickelodeon.
Okay. I mean, I couldn't believe you left that stuff off. I was shocked at that. I was really stunned by the number of people that wrote in saying that they too love Patty Mayonnaise. Like a lot of people, first character they fell in love with, felt an attraction to. A few people as well sent in photos of their dogs who were named Patty Mayonnaise. And they kind of do look like Patty Mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Look at these little dogs. People still writing in a lot about Hooters.
Of course.
Annette wrote in from New Zealand saying in the mid 2010s, there was a couple in Hamilton, New Zealand. And if you know New Zealand, Hamilton is a perfect place for this to happen. Opened an establishment called Jugs. Do you know what Jugs are?
No, what?
Jugs are, I guess, like jugs of beer. Two big jugs of beer.
I know
and they could
jugs
be
are.
breasts. That was based off Hooters. Their tagline was cold jugs and hot racks. It didn't take off and didn't expand beyond Hamilton, but they tried.
Racks of lamb and like ribs.
I guess so. Yeah. So there was a Hooters wannabe in New Zealand and it failed miserably. I thought this was interesting. I didn't think about it. I spoke about a massage I had. And I think I called, what did I say? Masseuse? What did I say? I can't remember what I called them. Christy said a woman is a masseuse, a man is a masseur. Today, the person, though, giving massages is called a massage therapist, and that's the way we talk about them. I thought that was interesting. Massage therapist.
I did. I don't think we connected the dots when we recorded that episode, but you basically were objectified when you went to be massaged.
Yes.
And we did not connect the dots to how much we were trying to tiptoe around objectification.
Objectifying woman.
And just the juxtaposition of that was funny. But it also just is perfectly what society is.
It was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Jay wrote in saying one iconic moment in US history was missed. I was completely unaware of this until my girlfriend mentioned having flown on Hooters Airlines multiple times. You sent me a picture after the episode as well, Rob, of the plane. That's just a Hooters plane.
Hooters
Unbelievable.
Airplane. Yep.
So yeah, I just want to say, no, there was of course there was a Hooters airline. And yeah, the staff on board wore similar outfits to what they wear in the restaurants.
I don't think I would feel comfortable flying on a Hooters plane.
No. Neither. I don't want to fly on a plane that is sort of has like a wacky name in any way.
No.
I want it to be dead fucking serious when I'm flying.
Yeah.
I don't want any kind of pageantry.
No.
At all. Dan wrote in, I thought this was fascinating. It's far too long, but I'm going to just zip through. I've been a food scientist working in product R&D for most of my career, but I worked at a small consulting group right out of college that helped restaurants with their menu innovation. Essentially, my job was to help use consumer trend data to help chain restaurants keep their menus fresh. As part of this job, I was assigned to a project with Hooters. My experience working with Hooters team was somehow shocking and completely expected. It was a roller coaster. My boss and I arrived at their Atlanta headquarters fresh from the airport, where naturally I asked if I could use the restroom after checking in at the front desk, which is where the fun began. I was pointed down a corridor where there were two doors, one labeled Standing Proud, over the silhouette of a man with his hands on his hips, and one labeled Sitting Pretty, with the silhouette of a woman in an almost Marilyn Monroe-esque stance. I rolled my eyes. They had a tour. They went to the test kitchen, met a few people along the way. On one side of the office, there were offices for a few executives with secretary desks outside of them. It felt very Mad Men and outdated, but I didn't think anything of it until we were introduced to one of them who rattled off an intro which included her pointing down to an old photo of herself in the classic Hooters uniform. The executive team all had former Hooters girls as their secretaries. I should say this is all allegedly.
Yeah.
I do believe this guy. And they all proudly had framed pictures of themselves, as one of them put it, in their prime. Yeah, so it just goes on. And I'll just say, like, Hooters HQ just sounds like exactly what you would think Hooters HQ is, but to like a comical degree.
Yeah. Ugh.
Okay. Jake said, Kiwi here, nostalgic listen. Nickelodeon, there was Nickelodeon. You could pay for the network, but it came much after I was a kid.
On Sky TV.
Which made me feel old on Sky TV. Sometimes the feedback does make me feel closer to 50. Okay, this is interesting. Kate said, fun fact about the Rugrats is that one of the main characters, Chucky, was growing up with a single dad after his mum died.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chucky's sad dad.
It's frequently
I think
cited.
he starts like dating at some point on the show.
Right, really?
Yeah.
It's frequently cited as one of the earliest cartoons to depict this, and a lot of kids, including myself, appreciated having this representation.
Yeah. There was a lot of feedback, too, about the Passover episode of Rugrats and how that's where a lot of people learned
what Passover
about
was.
Passover.
That's cool.
They celebrate Passover.
I wanted to know if you knew about this, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
AJ said Rocco from Rocco's Modern Life was a phone sex operator.
That vaguely sounds familiar. I don't think it was a sex operator.
Okay.
But I think he was a phone operator.
As a kid, I always found it funny he would say in a very monotone voice, "Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby," while seated in a cubicle for work. Do you have memories of this?
I mean, we got to Google this now.
This seems kind of outrageous.
I have vague memories.
I mean, baby, baby, baby
It's
does
weird.
sound like a sex line.
It's weird, too, because as a kid, you're not clocking those types of references or jokes. So it was just like, well, he's answering phones and he's...
So people also ask on Google, is Rocco a sex phone operator? It was implied in his brief stint as a telephone operator in the season 1 episode Canned, where an instruction sheet notes employees to be hot, be naughty, and be courteous. And he flatly repeats, "Oh baby," into the receiver. So yeah, it seems like quite a wild thing to
incredible.
put in.
Yeah.
Like, it's not subtle.
Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Rocco. Mrs. Bighead?
That's the gag. And Rocco has a book on his desk called Specialty Phone Operator. Yeah, it's quite naughty, isn't it?
But it's subtle enough and like PG enough that it's going to totally go over a kid's head.
Yeah, Rocco wasn't like, "Fuck me now," like bend me over on all fours and fuck me. You know, it wasn't like that.
Okay.
Kapil said, "Love the trip down memory lane." That one Are You Afraid in the Dark episode with the pool, which we talked about,
Yeah.
seems universally the scariest one. It's the only one I remember, in fact. And every time that show comes up with friends, it's the episode they all mention as well. I love the idea of one episode of a TV show just
traumatizing
like a generation of kids.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if the creators knew that they had made something particularly off-putting, or they just hadn't tested it on a crowd, and like pools are just this universal horror that we have.
I mean, even the intro to that show was so scary too. Like, I remember covering my head when the swings would come on and the wagon.
Yeah, it's scary shit.
Yeah.
A lot of people wrote in about Avatar: The Last Airbender being an amazing animated show. Not to be confused with the remake that
M. Night Shyamalan.
M. Night did.
Second M. Night Shyamalan reference.
It is. Mel said, as a self-proclaimed 90s Nick expert, I had to throw in a few facts you may have missed. Donnie in The Wild Thornberrys was not
important.
Yeah, was not Eliza's biological brother. They found him. He'd been raised by monkeys out in the jungle. He's also voiced by Flea of the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yes, I saw that, which is incredible.
Flea seems like a good guy. Out of all of them, sort of not a Red Hot Chili Peppers guy, but Flea seems like mildly interesting to me.
Yeah.
He's acted in some stuff. And the dad, Nigel, is voiced by the great Tim Curry. Iconic actor. Angela said, and I included her email because a lot of people wrote in about that show you mentioned, Hey Dude.
Yep. Hey Dude.
Huge. Live action series ran for 5 seasons, followed a group of teenagers spending their summer working on a dude ranch.
Mm-hmm.
It's intrinsically quite funny. What is a dude ranch? Like, they say this so casually, dude ranch, like it's something that, what is a dude ranch?
I don't know. You're going to have to look that up too. There's a ranch with
dude ranch. I assume it's like cowboys and just a lot of dudes.
I do like vividly remember the artwork of that show, though.
A guest ranch, also known as a dude ranch, is a type of ranch orientated towards visitors or tourism. So dude ranch doesn't have to be dudes. It's more just touristy. There's a bunch of things, reviews for dude ranch this, dude ranch that. Yeah, so Wikipedia, a guest ranch, also known as a dude ranch. It's just a ranch. Quite a weird thing to call it.
Yeah.
Massive Wikipedia page about dude ranches. Maybe it should be a topic. Okay. Oh, yeah. Was one more bit of the story that I found interesting. One of the cast members, Joe Torres, quit acting and disappeared from the public eye immediately after the show, Hey Dude, ended. Over the years, several cast members tried unsuccessfully to reach him, which sparked rumors that he might be missing or even dead. Spoiler alert. He was alive and well the whole time. He simply had no interest in remaining in the public eye. Good reference to what this whole episode is kind of about. Anticlimactic, maybe, but I remember this being one of the earliest internet-fueled conspiracy theories that I closely followed. Thank you, Angela. If you have feedback on anything in this episode, I got something wrong, maybe I stated my age incorrectly again,
Yeah.
maybe Rob left off something from a slideshow
TV show,
that he
yeah.
did, flightlessbirdchat@gmail.com. We have tickets for our 3 live shows coming up end of March, April. You can find those in the show notes or over on our Instagram page. They are in the links there as well. Anything else? I think that's us.
That's us.
And yeah, we have Patreon, bonus episodes every week, patreon.com/flightlessbird. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.